Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr, almost as always from the comfort of Tom's car. Tom, how are you doing?
Good. Big game this weekend.
Well, it could have been, but Wisconsin lost, Tom. So it's not nearly as big as it should have been. And talking to Ryan Day and the players today, they all echoed that sentiment completely.
Yeah, a lot of, well, we were excited for this, but now, Yeah,
it's too bad. We would have liked to have played them undefeated, but now we know that they're a lesser team coming in, so we're not really too worried about that. I believe that was the overall sentiment.
Yeah, now they've lost a game, so it's basically like playing Rutgers or Michigan, so.
Yep. And so they will look ahead to, who do they play next week? Bye week. Vacation.
Bye week still undefeated.
Yes, so you got to take that seriously. Surprisingly, when the players and coaches were asked if they are approaching this game any differently now that Wisconsin has lost, they all said, Tom, no.
Nope. No.
This is still a very big game, and this is still a Wisconsin offense and defense that can wreck you.
Jonathan Taylor still
is he?
Present. Yes, still planning on making the trip. Wisconsin offensive lineman, still large.
Oh.
Wisconsin's defense still, pretty respectable.
Right.
I think you're still going to face a Wisconsin team this weekend, and that still means what it has meant for basically a quarter century now.
Yes, exactly. Chris Olave talked about looking at Wisconsin plays different schemes defensively. They'll do different things, how they did something different against Illinois than they did against Michigan. And Illinois, I think he said they went cover zero, which means basically no deep safety. They will not do that against Ohio State.
No. Well, if they do, it will be over very quickly.
Correct.
But I don't think they will.
So I would expect them to do more of what they did against Michigan, and clearly what they planned to do against Illinois did not work. And I know Jim Leonard, their defensive coordinator, everybody loves him. He's like kind of like the Ryan Day of defensive coordinators a few years back, where he is this hot commodity and you wonder how long he can stay at Wisconsin. And wasn't he the guy in 2017 who said didn't have much respect basically for the Ohio State offense going into that Big Ten championship game?
Was that him? I don't remember that. I don't remember that being him.
I think he may have said some things, and maybe he was right about it.
Well, Ohio State won eventually.
And they came out really quickly and put some points on the board. Maybe it was some. I'm not thinking about Clemson.
No. No, Clemson said all the right things and then did all the right things. So
this will be a little bit different game, even though they do have a quarterback who can run the ball again at Ohio State. So today we talked to Ryan Day, Greg Mattison, Chris Olave, as I said, Tuf Borland, Tommy Togiai, and that was it, right?
That was it.
I did not get to talk to Justin Fields, but we will talk to him later this week. In terms of some things that Ryan Day had to say, Baron Browning is definitely working through an injury, but he looks good. He should be okay. I know this kind of annoyed me this last week, where people were wondering, is Baron Browning in trouble? Mm-hmm. And it's like, why would you assume that? Right. He's never been in trouble. And so I don't know why people would assume, just because Ryan Day doesn't talk about injuries, maybe that's why, but apparently he got dinged at the end of the Michigan State game. Yeah. I haven't gone back and looked at it, but he should be back. Ryan Day said after the Northwestern game that he expects him back. Thayer Munford is working through his thing, and they expect him to be, to play as well. And that was just a gritty performance last weekend, and it might be something that he has to do. The rest, definitely this week. Yeah. But then you see how well he does over that bye week to get even healthier.
Well, you get through this week, and then you have a week off, and then you have Maryland, who Ohio State should probably be favored by 28 to 30 points against, I would guess. And then you have Rutgers, who Ohio State should be favored by, I think the line, someone came out this week and said their metrics had Ohio State favored by about 50 over Rutgers, with an over-under of 53.5, which would be some kind of something if that's how that ended up working out. So you get through this week, and then you have probably 3 weeks where if they need to play with, we didn't get an update on Josh Alabi, but if Josh Alabi needs to play against Maryland or Rutgers, and Thayer Munford needs to sit out and rest, that's fine. I don't want to spoil anything. Ohio State's probably going to be okay, even in front of that raucous Rutgers crowd.
Tom, might be more Ohio State fans there, actually, for that game.
That's why they're raucous, yes. Yes. Rutgers does have a cannon, which is a concern.
It is a concern, and if you are not prepared for that cannon, it can jar you from firsthand experience.
A lot of guys questionable the next week against Penn State with tinnitus. Yes, possible. Maybe. You never know.
Any other injury news? I don't.
There really wasn't. We never get much injury news on Tuesday. Like, people have tried asking various questions in various ways, and everyone always kind of prefaces it with, "I know you don't want to talk about injuries."
It's like talking to the Godfather. It's like, with all due respect, I know you don't want to talk about injuries, but is Damon Arnett playing with his wrist in a cast? Is he, sir?
On this, the day of your daughter's wedding, I beseech of thee, Godfather, an update on Josh Alabi's injury status.
Yes.
And then the Godfather, going against tradition, does not grant that wish, which is, and boy, that was a real smooth transition from Rutgers to the Godfather talk. That was masterful.
Pretty good.
So we really didn't get any update on injuries, and you can kind of, sort of, maybe glean some information later in the week. Sometimes we can tell guys when they're coming in from practice on Wednesdays. You can, hey, this guy's not wearing pads. That's probably a decent indication that something's not great. But in terms of actual firm information, reportable information, this definitely means something for Saturday. That'll come Friday morning when we get that injury report.
While we're talking about the offensive tackles, Ryan Day did say that Dawand Jones will likely not redshirt this year.
Yeah.
And he's right at that limit, I believe, and now they're going to just continue to play him where it's necessary.
Yeah.
They're not going to put him out there just to put him out there. But you saw what he can do on that Master Teague touchdown run where he collapsed the entire side of the field.
Yeah.
Even into the sideline. I believe 3 coaches were taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
And also, now you free him up to be a field goal blocking specialist. You put him and Chase Young in there.
Yep.
And now you're talking like Hakeem Olajuwon and Otis Thorpe together.
Yeah, that was that was a big change from a month ago from when we talked to Ryan Day. It was September 12th, I think, because I just wrote about this week. Ryan Day had basically said, we want to be cautious with it. We don't want to waste a year just on field goal block. For him to now be very likely going to use a year this year, that tells you that they think he has the potential to be an impact player on offense too, because they don't just want to use it on 6 snaps and, okay, well, you played 6 snaps and you used a year. You may see him on offense at some point moving forward, or that may be, hey, the second half of the Rutgers game, you're going to see a lot of Dawand Jones. Ryan Day today was asked about the most pleasant surprises on the team and really didn't want to give an answer on that.
Really?
To me, Dawand Jones, even though it was the day of his daughter's wedding, disrespectful of tradition. Dawand Jones, to me, is right up there. Because there are a couple guys that came into the year, we kind of went, well, if you go back to one of our spring shows, probably, we talked about, which freshmen are going to probably redshirt.
He was definitely going to redshirt.
He was a definite redshirt, because he is just, he's very much a project. He has only played a couple of years of football. He was mostly a basketball player growing up. So you just kind of went, well, he's enormous, and they're going to just sort of see what they get out of him eventually. For him to be already on the field, you saw the impact he can have. Literally the impact that he can have on other human beings. That is remarkable for him to be at this point. And next year, you're losing Josh Alabi, you're losing Brandon Bowen, so that's 2 of those top 4 tackle spots open. Nicholas Petit-Frere is obviously going to be the favorite to probably take the starting job opposite Thayer Munford. If Thayer Munford goes pro, you've got a second tackle spot open. All of a sudden, Dawand Jones is that might be him in the mix for that starting job. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that earlier in this fall.
Right, and I want to talk about that as well, because I think the Thayer Munford thing is tied into Nicholas Petit-Frere moving to left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they are thinking this might be Thayer Munford's last year at Ohio State, and let's get Petit-Frere involved there as well. And it also might be a sign that Josh Alabi is not very close to returning.
It could be.
So all of could be all of these, could be none of these things. But what is clear is they want Dawand Jones to play this year because it will help for next year. And Ryan Day even said that there's no substitution for actually playing on the field, and this will help him next year. And they might need him right out of the gate, if not to start, then to be that number 3 guy. And as we've seen, they've needed 2 number 3 guys this year, in both Josh Alabi and Nicholas Petit-Frere. And you'll have Paris Johnson next year coming in, but you can't rely on a true freshman to even play, let alone be somebody such a cog as a starter or the 3rd guy. And to have played 4 tackles this year, they're probably like, you know what? We can't just go into a season with 3 ready anymore. We need 4.
Yeah. Well, if you are missing a tackle who is, like, if you have to start a guy at tackle or play a guy at tackle in a big spot who's not really ready. I mean, they've got more than 4 tackles on the roster, but they very clearly don't think that some of the guys behind them are really ready for that spot yet. If you have to play that, like, that blows up your offense. Because then you have to account for that in the run game. You have to account for that in pass protection. That changes how many guys you can send out in pass routes. Like, that completely changes the complexion of your offense. You have to have that depth. This year, Ohio State has been incredibly fortunate to have 4 guys who are at least at the level that they are. I mean, I wrote about Nicholas Petit-Frere this week, and everyone was kind of like, well, he didn't play that well. It's like, yeah, he played fine. He is not going to be Thayer Munford. That is not a fair standard to hold him to. It's his first start. It's on the road. It's against a team with decent defensive ends. You have a quarterback that can kind of, I mean, a couple weeks ago, Ryan Day talked about Justin Fields kind of, when Ryan Day does something wrong, Justin Fields has to make him look smart. Like, sometimes when a tackle misses a block, Justin Fields has to make that not a problem. And he has the ability to do that. He had one that, guy came like off his blind side and got around the tackle, and it was just like, all right, well, he felt it and he moved, he dodged it and turned it into something positive instead of negative.
I think Ryan Day did mention that that's one of the things that has maybe been, I don't know if it's the biggest issue, one of the issues they've had. They haven't had many issues, but the amount of times that Justin Fields has been sacked. But he also mentioned that in this offense, they want him to hold the ball a long time. And you're seeing that, and a lot of times, he'll hold it even longer than I guess they want him. But the plan in the offense is they've run a lot of double moves and a lot of deep routes because they have confidence in their offensive line to make this happen. And they have a quarterback who can stretch the field and receivers who can do the same. So when you have all of those different aspects, why not use it? And so that's going to cause some sacks at times. But I don't, if you're looking for something that is the weak spot of the offense, I don't consider it a weak spot. It's almost like they're choosing to allow it to be softer than they need to because they can.
Right. They don't have to do that. He can get rid of the ball sooner, and they can tell him, read 2 guys and then throw it away or take off running. They want to put that pressure on the defense, because that was something that Greg Mattison talked about today from the defensive side of the ball. If your defensive line is playing badly, it can make your defensive backs look bad because the defensive backs have to cover instead of for 3 seconds, for 6 seconds. And at some point, it's hard to keep covering wide receivers. And if Justin Fields can stay back in that pocket, maybe move the pocket a little bit, turn it into kind of a scramble drill, that can make things much more difficult in the opposing defense. You've seen times where he's taken that sack. You've seen times where you probably thought, yeah, he really needs to take off right now. But you've also seen times where he's been back in that pocket, maybe bought a little time with his feet, and then found a receiver open for a big play. It is, you take the good, you take the bad. When you take them both, it's then that you have the facts of life.
The facts of life.
The facts of life, yes. So, and also the facts of passing the ball downfield. Like, there are pluses, there are minuses. You just kind of have to weigh them. In the end, Mrs. Garrett wants him to hold the ball back in that pocket a little longer, find those receivers downfield, and make timely references like the facts of life.
Yeah. Doesn't get much more timely than a show that ran from 1982 to 1987, Tom.
That is surprisingly detailed knowledge about the facts of life.
Well, that's because we are the only two that reference stuff like that, because we don't watch new stuff from the 90s.
No.
No, we sure do not. Did you see, speaking of Alex Keaton, did you see Family Ties the other night, Tom?
The other night, meaning 12,457 nights ago? Yes, I did. Good episode.
Good
Rerun.
episode. They live in Columbus.
They do.
Ryan Day today was asked about the quote-unquote struggles in the first quarter for this Ohio State team. And he mentioned that his wife had asked him the same thing about the Northwestern game, and he was like, didn't we score in like the first 5 minutes of that game? And he's like, you know what? What are these struggles? And it just goes to show you, Tom, once you become the head coach at Ohio State, like even your wife is like demands more of you. It's unreal.
You know, Ryan Day has talked about his family really liking it in Columbus, being comfortable in Columbus. Nina Day is officially an Ohio State fan now. What's wrong with your offense? He said he said his wife said the Buckeyes had a tough first quarter. His quote was, 4 minutes into the game, we scored a touchdown. I'm like, well, it wasn't that tough.
So she's officially like, I wonder what her message board handle is
Oh,
now.
man. Yeah, she's got a burner account to at him about throw downfield, you coward.
Exactly. Why are you punting from the 46-yard line?
No, that was not my burner account.
No, that was just your straight account.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that everybody watched the Wisconsin game pretty much. And I think Tommy Togiai said they wanted them to come in undefeated. But, you know, they choked, Tom, against an Illinois.
That wasn't a direct quote from Tommy Togiai.
No. He did not say it. Tom, they choked.
You have to actually say the close quote portion on a podcast, because otherwise people.
That's true.
There's some
this
gray
podcast does get quoted quite a bit, along with being listened to by the Ohio State coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just when you hear us talking about stuff like that, assume that the players did not say anything scandalous or disrespectful. They are very, very well trained in media relations, and I can't remember a time in the last couple of years where I thought, oh, that's some bulletin board material. It just there are programs that are trash talking kind of programs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't see me, but I'm making a U with my hands right now. But this is very much a, there's the programs that want to talk before the game. There's the programs that want to talk after the game. And then there's the programs that just don't really talk. And that's kind of Ohio State. Like you don't really hear much trash talk even after the game. Like it's generally a very respectful kind of on to the next one kind of thing. So.
It's really, it angers me because they're all so, savvy in terms of don't say anything to the media that you don't want on social media. It's probably something like, don't say anything to the media that you wouldn't tweet to your mother, or one of those things. And they follow it pretty well, and it's too bad. That's probably maybe why we don't get Damon Arnett as much as we would like.
Maybe we'll get him Rutgers week. That would be great. That would be really great.
No.
If anyone from the OSU Sports Information Department is listening, please give us Damon Arnett during Rutgers week.
Yes, that would be nice. There's an interesting matchup between two guys who won't be on the field together, J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
J.K. Dobbins said in the spring he wanted to be the best. He believes he's the best running back in the nation and wanted to show it. And it's like, yeah, you're a very good running back. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're not Jonathan Taylor. You're not that guy. And yet, so far this season, he's been neck and neck right there. He's doesn't have quite as many yards, maybe like 10 or 12 fewer yards. But that's because Taylor has more carries.
It's because Master Teague is fifth in the Big Ten in rushing yards and stealing all of J.K. Dobbins' yards.
Master Teague, the vulture. But he has played every bit as good as well, if not better than Jonathan Taylor. And I don't think right now it's outrageous to... he's definitely in the argument as the best back in the nation. I think people just automatically give it to Jonathan Taylor because of his first two seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, yes. And maybe they don't look at it closely enough. But with what Dobbins has done, what he means to this offense, and now if they're going to use him in the passing game like they did against Northwestern, kind of as Wisconsin is doing a little bit now with Jonathan Taylor, that makes him even more dangerous. Because that was always what, I remember talking to his high school coach when Dobbins was a senior heading into his freshman season. And he was like, he could be a slot guy for anybody and be excellent at it. And then I remember his next line was, or he could, grow up and be 225 pounds like that beast that's leaving now. And you're talking about Ezekiel Elliott. And, Dobbins can do whatever you need. And he is running tough. He's got this, this determination to, I think, prove people wrong, but also maybe prove himself correct in that desire to be the best running back in the nation.
I like the way Ryan Day answered this question, and this is one of these good media training things where he said, someone asked him, is J.K. Dobbins looking forward to going head-to-head against Jonathan Taylor this weekend? And, Ryan said, well, you'd have to ask J.K., but I know, the quote was, I know that he's very competitive. That means yes. Yes, he is. And he probably knows if he has if he can put up a 125 kind of yard game this weekend against Wisconsin, 150 yard game against Wisconsin, maybe score a couple touchdowns. If the Ohio State defense plays the way the Ohio State defense could play and holds Jonathan Taylor to 60 yards, then all of a sudden that maybe changes the tenor of that conversation about the best running back in the country. And I'm sure, that's probably not the foremost thing on J.K. Dobbins' mind this week, but I'm sure the thought has probably crossed his mind.
And it's probably not the foremost thought on Ryan Day's mind, but if your running back outshines Jonathan Taylor, that would be good for recruiting. And you need some good news in the 2020 recruiting department when it comes to running backs. I don't think they really concern themselves about that, but I also do think they would be like, let's go ahead and we'll give JK 28 carries in this game and we'll just run him and if things are going well and it's looking good, just keep giving him the ball and show all these people who won't commit to Ohio State what they, just to cram it in their ugly faces with walnuts, basically, as to paraphrase Homer Simpson.
Yeah, it's not. That is not something that he is going into this week specifically thinking about, probably. But it would be a nice little side benefit if that is how it played out. I'm sure the game plan is not based around 2020 Ohio State running back recruiting. That would be pretty irresponsible if it was. But the plan to win, Ryan Day talked about this week being a week, the bigger the game, the more important the plan to win is. The plan to win involves being able to run the ball. That's a part of it. They're going to look to do that. But that's not going to be the be-all and end-all of the game plan. That's going to be something they're looking to do. If they can do it, great. If the ancillary benefit to recruiting is there as well, great. It's not called the plan to recruit. It's called the plan, it's called the plan to win. Winning is the most important thing on the weekend.
You mentioned the plan to win. Ryan Day said the bigger the game, the more you focus on that plan to win. And what that means, Tom, is
they're going to punt the ball in plus territory, and I'm going to yell.
The plan to win, it's funny that it begins with when you get the ball, you want to get 2 first downs so that you're at midfield, and then you can punt the ball and pin them back. Now, ideally, you would take those 2 first downs and then continue to get first downs. But you can't always guarantee that. They basically just want to get into a position to punt the ball well.
Mm-hmm. Punting is winning.
And when that is the foremost thing in your mind, it feels like that is the result you are trying to reach. And so you are okay with, not going for it on 4th and 2 from the 48 because you know what? We just wanted to get here to punt. So let's just do what we set out to do. And now you've got this game of field position for 60 minutes when if you were to just have a plan to be aggressive, you might do a little bit better. But this is, where what you want to call it, a sphincter game. One of those things where things tighten up and it becomes a trestle ball affair. And that's the plan going in.
Yeah, that's just kind of how every college football coach is, and there's no really getting around that, which is, you look at the defensive coaches like Pat Fitzgerald and Pat Narduzzi, for example. They're going to do that because they are defensive coaches first and foremost, and in their mind it is, well, I have to protect the defense, and I can't put the defense in a bad spot. But Jim Tressel was a quarterback in college, a quarterback's coach in college, and played that way. Ryan Day was a quarterback in college, a quarterback coach in college. Urban Meyer made his hay as a coach and he made his hay as a coach on the offensive side of the ball. those are people that you would think would be more likely to go for it. And Urban Meyer was decently aggressive about going for it, but he definitely, there is an expected point value for each different circumstance on the field, like down and distance and yard line and all that kind of stuff on the field. The expected point value basically always says you should go for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3 in plus territory. The reality is that most college coaches are somewhat too risk averse is probably a good way to say it, and aren't going to do that. That's just a reality of life, and until Ryan Day loses a game, I guess you can't really criticize him.
And Ryan Day was asked today how he will feel about losing his first game, whether he would feel it more as a head coach or would it be worse when he was an assistant coach, which to me would be like, that's not even really, there'd be no difference. I mean, there'd be no comparison almost. Like, this is your program now, and you caused this loss. When you're an assistant, you were part of a loss. As the head coach, this goes on your record. There's no assistant coaching record. Mm-hmm.
Imagine how angry his wife would be after that game.
That's a good point. I didn't come to Ohio State to be a losing coach's wife with a losing record or any losses at all. It's like, well, I mean, that's kind of demanding, but that's also wives in general. But that's a different podcast, Tom. That's our Patreon show. We won't go there here. But yeah, it's what, 7? He's now 10-0.
10-0
as a head coach. Urban Meyer started out 24-0 at Ohio State, but that was different because he had already had losses at Florida. I believe the game notes said this is the fourth best start for an Ohio State head coach.
If he wins this week, he would tie Earl Bruce for the third best start for an Ohio State head coach, which is amazing that if he is the fourth coach to win at least 10 games in a row at the start of his career. Think about how many programs have not had 4 10-game winning streaks in their history. Ohio State has had 4 coaches start their careers 10-0, which you're normally starting your job during something of a time of crisis, or you're not generally starting at a high point in the program's history. Earl Bruce did it coming off of kind of the nadir of the Woody Hayes era, where they had not really been competitive with Michigan for a couple of years at the end of his tenure. You remember 2011. Urban Meyer did just fine coming off of that. So, compared to those, Ryan Day's had it pretty easy.
I don't think Rich Rodriguez won his 10th game until his 3rd season.
Yeah, because they won 3 and then 5. So,
yeah. And Ryan Day is slightly better than that now, doing 10 games in his 2nd season. So.
I mean, maybe he's going to go 0-24 and end up basically where Rich Rod did.
Well, Tom, if the Ohio State Sports Information Department is listening to this show, they are not going to be happy with you right there.
I didn't say he was going to. I just said it's plausible.
Yeah, but you're putting it out into the universe. Anything else from Day before we get to Mattison and the players real quick? Or
They do get to play Rutgers in a couple weeks. He's not going to go on 24.
Geez, that's true. You're right.
No, I think that pretty much covered it from Day.
Every time we talk to somebody about Chase Young, everybody just raves about him, and it's not just about his ability to play, it's his leadership ability, and how I think Tommy Togiai and Tuf Borland both talked about how much he has grown as a leader in just this last year. And whenever you start talking to Greg Mattison or Jeff Hafley about Chase Young, like they become luminescent. They're like creating light from their being when they speak about him. And Ohio State is recruiting really, really well. They're doing all of this. But, you lose Chase Young after this season, and it's going to be hard to replace him. And you want to make sure you get the most out of him this year. And the most out of him this year would mean a national championship. And to the way they're playing right now with him on defense, it feels like that is, everybody's projecting them into the playoffs right now. And if they get there, I don't know of another team, is he the team MVP? You've got Justin Fields, who's the quarterback. Chase Young makes everything easier for everybody else on defense.
Right. Well, he speeds everything else up for the quarterback. He accounts for more opposing players just because good luck blocking him one-on-one. That's probably not going to be a winning strategy. So you're at least shading a second guy over there. I wrote about this last week, 2 weeks ago, just about how, there are a bunch of things he does that don't show up in the box score. Like, he's dominant in the box score. And then you throw on the leadership stuff, and then you throw on the on-field stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, where it's like, oh, the offensive tackle for Michigan State, the right tackle, is just coming in to chip Chase Young, just to kind of slow him down a little bit. And just that little chip was enough to give Baron Browning a clean shot at the quarterback. And so now Baron Browning gets a sack, and Dan Harker had a great picture of that was on that article of Baron Browning just drilling Brian Lewerke. And Chase Young's like way in the background, but it's like, well, he made this play. He's not, the picture doesn't look like he made this play, but he made this play. He does that so often for this team. And yeah, I mean, if you want to have which player should be the Heisman contender on this team, it's Chase Young. He probably won't be, just because that's just not what the Heisman is, much to its detriment. But he is such not only an outstanding player, but such a complete player that, I mean, he's talked about wanting to go down as the best pass rusher in Ohio State history. If he finished this season strong and they play out the year the way that it could play out in 15 games, he's getting towards the best players in Ohio State history, regardless of position.
That's a lofty group of players, but I'm with you. And then even seeing Blake Haubeil hits that field goal, and one of the first players running out there to congratulate him is Chase Young. Mm-hmm. And, Chase Young is having to wait in line basically to greet Haubeil after that kick. But, he was as excited as anybody else. And this is not a guy who has this, I'm the number one draft pick in the NFL. Nope. So please do not approach me. Do not make eye contact with me. He is completely, he's a captain. He's a leader. And his focus can be so many different places, but it's so obviously just with this team and with each game.
Yeah. I mean, he is, I feel like we write about him more, like way more than any other individual player, but it's just like, you keep coming up with different ways to go, no, but this guy's really good. Like,
you don't
really
understand.
Good. Like I know you think this guy's good, but you don't get it. Like, he's so good. Like, to go from 6 years of Bosa's and be like, oh no, this guy's on another level. Like, I mean, it is, I don't know. I literally do not have words. It is a luxury that most teams don't have. And I mean, Ryan Day, every time you talk to Ryan Day and someone asks him, like, what have you been most surprised about or most pleased with this season? He always talks about the team chemistry. Yep. And that starts from the top. I mean, that starts from the guys at the top being team players and, not complaining when they get pulled out to let, for rotation purposes and all of that. And, everyone's kind of pulling on this, pulling in the same direction, and everyone's got the same goals. And when you look at a player like Chase Young, who has, pretty big things ahead of him, and his goals are all centered on the team stuff and, being a winning team and getting to, not having the slip-ups that you've had in previous years. It's like when you see, the star players are the ones who are working the hardest in the weight room and the ones who are working hardest during the off season. That's like, well, if I want to be that good, if I want to be him, if I want to grow up to be Chase Young someday, I better do that. And, that's something that has an impact not just this year, but then in the future as well.
Yep. That gets handed down. I mean, that's Terry McLaurin saw that from Evan Spencer, and Zach Harrison saw it from Chase Young. Jack Sawyer will see it from Zach Harrison. Mm-hmm. And it just continues. You continue to pay it forward. The Brendon White situation. Let's talk about that really quickly or really longly. It depends on how long we go. It was Josh Proctor in there at linebacker / bullet, whatever you want to call it, for for much of the game instead of Brendon White. Amir Reep got in there as well. Jocelyn Went was even in there. And so when Greg Mattison was asked about this, I think somebody mentioned like Jocelyn Went playing in front of Brendon White. He's like, well, hold on. Jocelyn Went played 3 snaps. Brendon White played 17. Mm-hmm. And what Mattison said is it's not about, don't think of it as a depth chart. Think of it as skill sets. This guy does the running game better. This guy does the passing game better. This guy does better at the running game, pass game combo. This guy does this better. And so there is they're not playing in terms of a depth chart. They were just playing in terms of who they thought would be better for that situation. And I thought that was a good thing to clarify, because me going into this media session with Greg Mattison, I was going to ask him, so now is Josh Proctor your number 1 bullet? But I didn't even get a chance because he explained, it's situational things. And he seems to, I don't know if bristle about Brendon White, and like not being the player that the media thought he was going to be, or not the production. Because he continues to say it's about situations, and it's about packages, and it's not necessarily about the player. And so, it has to be frustrating for Brendon White, though.
You would think. I mean, I would assume that Brendon White came into this season with the same basic expectations that we had for him, which was, hey, he kind of stood out at that strong safety spot last year and seemed like when they moved into Bullet, like, okay, this is a role that seemed like he was really tailored for it, where he can come up and run support. You saw that last year. He can play. He's fast. He's faster than most linebackers. He should be like basically a perfect fit, like a perfect tailor-made fit for this Bullet role. And it hasn't really played out that way this year, where he's the clear-cut number 1, 60 snaps a game guy. So, my assumption is we have not gotten to talk to Brendon White in a month and a half, maybe since the preseason. Right. I mean, it's been a while. So we don't know quite what his thinking is, but if he came into the season with the same expectations that we did, then that would certainly probably be kind of frustrating. And then, and then that gets back into the team culture thing, and our guys willing to kind of be selfless and say, okay, as long as the team's winning, and that's certainly been what we've heard out of everyone. So until we talk to Brendon White, I think you have to assume that's the case.
I won't be shocked at some point this season, though, when he has like an interception and 2 tackles for loss, when it's his game, when the packages he's involved in, where he shines, and then we get to talk to him after the game, and he's like, yes, it gives you the explanation that you totally expect. Yes, it's frustrating, but you do it for the team, and nobody's selfish on this team, and gives you the exact answers you would expect from him. But yeah, I'm not like close to writing him off for anything right now. It's just there are so many different pieces to this defense, and you saw some of them last week when they were without Baron Browning and they had to move some things around. I was just surprised it wasn't Brendon White in there, because we even speculated that Pete Werner would be inside, which he did move inside, but it was Josh Proctor.
Yeah,
and so, but that's just that one time.
Well, and we've also talked about the fact that Josh Proctor is the person who over the summer was most consistently on the defense making plays during practice. Like everyone talked about the fact that, who has kind of stood out in the the summer and fall practices. It was always Josh Proctor. So, getting him on the field more is probably not a bad thing. That's not where he's going to play next year. He's not going to be a Bullet next year. He's going to be playing that free safety spot where Jordan Fuller is this year. It's just that Jordan Fuller's a pretty good football player too, and Jordan Fuller's been doing basically a fantastic job at the back end of the defense, where they have just not given up big plays this year, and that a lot of that is on Jordan Fuller. And so if there's not a place for him, they talk about wanting the best players to play. Like, well, you're going to put Josh Proctor on the field, put him, even if that's not where he's going to be next year, give him a chance to play. Get that talent, get that speed on the field, and then next year you move him back to free.
Anything else from today, Tom, that you wanted to touch on before we call it a day?
I think that's probably that probably covers covers most of it. Have we talked about Tommy Togiai?
No, and I was just looking at that.
Yeah, Tommy Togiai. I don't know if this is me just having I don't know. I always enjoy talking to offensive and defensive linemen. Like, I always feel like they have, just like personality-wise, they're always kind of interesting to talk to. They always have some interesting things to say. I really enjoyed hearing a little bit from Tommy Togiai today, because we have not talked to him a whole bunch prior to this. They kind of want you to really do something on the field before they bring you out to talk to wonderful, important people like us. And so now he's kind of getting into that spot. And I mean, he seems like a funny kid, and someone who this time next year could be well on his way to being a star and then some. Next
year could be his last year as a Buckeye. I'll just say that.
Yep. I had that same thought today.
Larry Johnson's message to Togiai this season was to, quote, wreck the line of scrimmage, unquote. And he does that pretty well. I did like what he also said about Dawand Jones. Like, everybody was excited to see Dawand Jones go in the game, and they loved his block, and his comment was, he's heavy.
Yes. They said, what's it like going up against him in practice? And he just said, he's heavy. Everyone kind of laughed, and he kind of expanded out a little bit. It was like, that's the takeaway. He's heavy.
Yeah, not metaphysically, just physically.
Yeah, not like, there's a complicated deep. Yeah. No. Yes. Literally.
He might be.
Maybe. We haven't gotten to talk to him yet.
No, we haven't.
He's someone I'm also really looking forward to talking to. Like, he seemed like he tweeted out a list of his nicknames earlier this week, and
Big Greasy, I think is, because I was even thinking about that. When we finally get to talk to him, it'd be like, hey, Big Greasy, and, just start calling him that. And I get the feeling, I wonder if he's kind of like B.B. Landers, where B.B. Landers, we'll talk to coaches in the team meeting room or players, and B.B. Landers will just pop his head in and say, you guys aren't getting the show today, because he's not there. He's not doing interviews.
Yes, Dawand Jones says, this is on Twitter, just said, also, my nicknames are Big Diesel, Big Greasy, Triple D, Big Thanos, and etc. Like, the etc. is doing some heavy lifting there. Like, if it's better than Big Diesel, Big Greasy, Triple D, and Big Thanos.
Big Greasy, man. That's good. I like that one.
When you've got big in 3 of your 4 nicknames, it gives you a sense. Like, he seems like someone who should be called Tiny.
Tiny?
Yeah.
Tiny heavy.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and wrap this show up. Tom, we are beginning our Patreon shows this week. Mm-hmm. You will be able to see those, and we thank those of you guys who have already signed up. And
you can sign up at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly, and it's WEEKLY. It's not like we're not strong. It's like it happens once a week, which is also not true, but that's the name we chose. And we're delivering more than we promised. So that's that's the key of,
that's your fault.
Yeah. Ryan Day talked about expectations and how, you have the importance of living up to expectations. You're expecting us once a week. We're giving it to you 3 times a week plus,
not more,
plus Patreon shows. So yeah, you can go there. We will have, some bonus shows this week. We'll do, I think our first one is coming out probably Tuesday or Wednesday this week. Just exclusively for Patreon subscribers. Just, join us at the $5 a month level or higher. And we're going to do the first one's going to be kind of a mishmash of a couple different things. And then you guys tell us, hey, we like this more than that. And we'll do that moving forward. The whole point of this is we want to give you what you want. So you tell us what you like, what you want, and we will do it.
Consider it an appetizer platter.
There you go.
And we'll see what you guys think. So as always, we appreciate your feedback. And we appreciate you guys listening. Talk to you soon.
Tell me that tomorrow's alright. We could steal a car